Welcome to The Ride Inside with Mark Barnes, a podcast about the mental, emotional, and social aspects of motorcycling, brought to you by the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America and the MOA Foundation. Mark Barnes is a clinical psychologist and motojournalist with decades of experience in both fields. But nothing in this podcast should be considered a way to diagnose or treat mental illness. We're all just trying to get through this thing called life, and motorcycles are one of the ways we do it. If you're in a crisis, or ride a KTM, please seek professional help. We'd love to answer your questions too, so send them to podcast@bmwmoa.org.
Hi, you're listening to The Ride Inside. I'm Mark Barnes, and this essay is entitled Good Buddies. A comment posted on the BMW MOA YouTube channel by TJ LeMay raised an issue with which many riders are no doubt painfully familiar. He mourned the loss of some longtime riding companions with whom he and his wife had enjoyed terrific compatibility and for whom they had found no replacements over the past decade. While human beings are definitely not interchangeable, we naturally feel compelled to fill the voids left by cherished relationships in our past, often a dismayingly tall order. The post contained a novel idea, a compatibility questionnaire designed to help folks find riding buddies likely to be a good fit in terms of temperament, habits, and priorities. I imagined something along the lines of a dating app with algorithms developed to match riders based on such similarities. Swipe right to ride. Obviously, this is part of a more general problem facing all adults, not just motorcyclists. Ideally, one of the best things about youth is the way school presents us with a vast smorgasbord of friendship possibilities, all readily accessible on a near-daily basis. Later in life, the world of work may offer a similar array of socializing opportunities, but most jobs involve far fewer options and far greater complications when treated as sources of extracurricular connections. In my field of psychotherapy, I see this play out in another way. Whereas the relational fit between therapist and client is the most critical factor in how well therapy goes, people hunting a therapist have little or nothing to go on as they conduct their searches. Even a strong recommendation from a trusted source may indicate nothing meaningful about the resonance any individual will feel interacting with that specific clinician. Like I said, human beings are not interchangeable. While it's certainly more promising to try a referral than to select someone at random from an insurance network list, the process still involves trial and error, and I caution seekers to view initial meetings as experiments, not commitments. Nobody is all things to all people, regardless of their talent or credentials. Also in my work, I witness the distress of those who cannot find a satisfying romantic partner, although this is often a subset of their difficulties expanding a circle of friends. Despite the seemingly limitless connections instantly available online these days, establishing real-life engagement proves elusive for multitudes. Caricatures of social media culture can be amusing, but the dearth of genuine, abiding, interpersonal relationships between flesh and blood human beings isn't funny in the least. It's excruciating for those lonely souls adrift on a sea of synthetic, illusory, and often destructive pseudo-connections. As bemoaned in Samuel Taylor Coleridge's Rime of the Ancient Mariner, water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. Helping people find fulfilling attachment is one of the core elements of my work. However, the only strategy I've found to have universal application, most people need their own unique methods, is to join existing groups that share an interest the person already has or wants to investigate. This approach provides at least one thing in common between the newcomer and the group, and that's a better place to start than the random assortment to be found at a bar or other unfiltered hangout. Referrals from mutual friends are usually also better than pot shots, but this process relies on someone else's initiative and assumes the person has friends who know eligible others. The one in need can't just unilaterally decide to collect a list of such candidates. On one hand, motorcyclists are, by definition, part of a large community with both a common interest and tremendous variety. On the other hand, the people on tap in any specific location may be few and not aligned with a particular rider's preferences. In a small town, there might be a little club of sport bike or cruising or dirt bike, etc. enthusiasts with a web page showing their meeting and event schedule. But long-distance tourers, or any other category, may have no such publicized gatherings. Even when a rider finds a group, whether one with formal activities or a cadre who frequently end up at the same cafe or overlook, and they do the same general type of riding, there are dozens of variables that might still get in the way of comfortable, rewarding connections. Are there others in the group with roughly the same skill level? It can be wearying, frustrating, and even humiliating to always be the slowest or fastest person. How much time does the group spend chatting versus riding? The camaraderie among motorcyclists is one of the avocation's biggest motivating factors, and some groups stop frequently to compare notes about the last leg of the outing, kick tires, or simply chat about whatever. Other groups spend only enough time without wheels turning to gas up, hit the restroom, and maybe gulp down a soda. What about other pragmatic issues, like how early the group usually heads out, how long a ride is considered a good day, and how unpredictably spontaneous or meticulously planned rides tend to be? All that, and plenty more, is before we even get to the unique mix of personalities within the group, and what, if any, sort of leadership exists. Finally, there's no substitute for history. Thoroughgoing compatibility still requires accumulated time together to cement connections securely, confirming across a variety of situations the favorable impressions made earlier and adding less obvious reasons to maintain affiliation. When you consider all the requirements of an excellent riding relationship, whether between members of a dyad or larger group, it can seem amazing any such miracles exist, but of course they do. Nevertheless, the task of seeking out new connections can be genuinely daunting, especially for more introverted types who feel awkward among strangers. It's important to set realistically limited goals. New arrivals are unlikely to endear themselves to an entire group at once. Conversing with a single other person is a perfectly legitimate achievement at a first gathering. In the absence of any organized meetings to attend, a rider might go fishing on the kind of roads or trails they like, pulling over to talk with any folks who stop to take in the scenery or stretch their legs. If they're riding where you like to ride, a friendship might be in the cards. Fundamentally, this is a numbers game. Without exposure to many possibilities, one has little hope of finding a truly great fit. It will almost certainly not happen on the first attempt. Perseverance will be necessary. Getting back to T.J. LeMay's notion of a compatibility questionnaire, I wonder what items such a tool might contain. I'm guessing a poll of riders would return suggestions for hundreds of possibilities. Simply putting them all together would likely yield a pretty low signal-to-noise ratio in the results, since they wouldn't all be of concern to everyone looking for a match. This is yet another area wherein people differ. Not only would their answers to questions vary, but the questions they'd want answered would be different too. A complex and probably unwieldy ranking system would have to be incorporated. Also, some folks may not be looking for a twin, but writing partners who are instead unlike them in certain ways. After all, variety is the spice of life for many people, and a diverse group can broaden its members' horizons. Stories are shared, curiosity is piqued, and explorations get planned and implemented with the benefit of veterans' wisdom. I love the idea of a nifty little worksheet for quickly determining who'd make a good writing buddy, but I can't conceive of any way to translate that from the theoretical realm to a practical application. There are just too many idiosyncratic aspects and intangible subtleties involved in the sorting process. As efficient as a questionnaire might seem, I suspect good old-fashioned verbal interaction is actually a more direct path to the desired treasure. I readily sympathize with T.J. LeMay's grief and difficulty, and it's a tragic fact of life some losses are ultimately irreplaceable. I encourage every seeker to keep looking, though. While diligence doesn't guarantee success, abandoning the search does ensure no one will be found. Those presently enjoying the benefits of well-tailored writing companionship should count themselves very fortunate indeed.
You're listening to The Ride Inside. I'm Mark Barnes, and we are going to be picking back up on our conversation with Tom Gary, who is current president of the BMW MOA Foundation. Look back at the recent editions of this podcast for the first half of this conversation, when Tom began telling us about the various elements that comprise the mission of the foundation. He had focused on rider training and education in our prior discussion, and we're going to pick back up with a very interesting second category, which has to do with preserving the history and tradition of BMW motorcycling. So, Tom, welcome again. Thanks for continuing this conversation with us. And where do you think we should start off in this second category?
Well, let's pick up, if you don't mind,
Sure.
the discussion on the second part of what the foundation mission is, and you mentioned that in your intro. Back in the first segment, I talked a little bit about the history of the foundation, and in that big vision that the group had back in the late 90s and in 2000 was in envisioning some sort of museum archive that would encapsulate the history of the MOA and so forth. That idea pretty well sat in the back room for a really long time. There wasn't a lot of energy for it. First of all, there wasn't a lot of money, and that's the important thing.
It does certainly seem like quite an ambitious project.
A very ambitious project from where they had envisioned it back in the year 2000. But the idea, the great vision, was to create a focal point, a destination point that would bring together the elements of both the MOA and the foundation in one place. We kind of have that today. It's in a small way, or a smaller way than what they had envisioned. Currently the MOA is located on a campus, a very nice campus in Greenville area in Greer, South Carolina. And we share a campus with the BMW Car Club of America. And we have a building, we lease a building, so the MOA does, and the foundation also leases portions of that as part of our relationship with the MOA. That creates the concept of a gathering place, if you will, a reason a reason for people to actually come there.
Destination.
A destination. Conceptually, there's been the thoughts, as I mentioned, languishing about, a museum, an archive, and so forth. The board of directors of the foundation, have undertaken the opportunity to look at this and created a separate subcommittee group to study the opportunity of what would a museum look like? Can we do this? What would it represent to the foundation? What would it represent to the MOA? How would that be presented, and so forth? Conceptually, we believe that it's very important. We, meaning the foundation and the board of directors of the MOA, we're aligned with this. We're strategically aligned. We see there's value. There's value to the membership. Important value, we think, to collectively make a presentation of the MOA, how the members have grown, the changes, and the relationship to, obviously, the conveyance. I think it goes without saying that the motorcycle, and this is my view now, the motorcycle is just a means of bringing people together in different ways. I mean, obviously, there's the fun of riding and all that, but at the end of the day, it's about the people. It's about the people you meet, that relationship. Obviously, that's the genesis of the club MOA, which is now 50 years old.
Sure, there's no need for a club if what you're saying isn't part of it.
Right, exactly. So the intent is that, and we're really excited to begin the announcement of this. We've been careful not to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we're ready to move. The foundation board is ready to move from, stating concept into talking development. We are going to roll out to the membership this year a more fuller explanation of this. They will see at the rally a booth. Our rally booth will have a portion dedicated to demonstrating what we're looking for, the grand vision, how we think, this would represent the MOA. What we're not trying to be is another motorcycle museum. Okay, we will have motorcycles in our museum, but that's not going to be the purpose of this museum. The thought that we're trying to extend forward is that we want to tell the story of the MOA, its people, its mission, and the motorcycles they ride, which is a very complete picture. It's something other than just trying to be the Barber Museum with other motorcycles in it.
Yeah, an important distinction. Yeah.
And what I've described it as, it's a journey. And I've said to some folks, in terms of, with motorcycles and so forth, I would take this on a kind of a decade viewpoint. If you were to step back in 1972 and stand on the grass, with your mug, your rally mug, and your beer in hand, and you look around, what would you see? What would the motorcycles be? What would it look like? How would people be dressed? What would they represent? And then carry that forward to try to create a relationship between this connection of people, club, and motorcycle. We think that's how we want to go with this. So we're going to develop the museum archive along those ways, and we're going to develop an archive for archival material. I think at its grandest vision, we would like to have some research material and so forth, which mainly represent, documentation and things like that. So we'll be talking to members, and hopefully they'll be interested. I'm very hopeful they will be. I'd like to see the interest manifest itself in a couple of ways. They have important archival material that I think we would be interested in. We've developed a collections policy document, so we're ready to acquire things if people have things that they would, want to share with us, and includes motorcycles as well. So,
well, I can't help but think that the MOA membership would, of course, be very interested in this. I mean, look at the content in the club magazine. It is really diverse. There are certainly technical articles and information about motorcycles, but I would say more pages are devoted to the human side of this equation and people's stories and their experiences. I mean, my own column in the magazine is certainly geared toward, what happens within and among riders. I write technical articles sometimes too, but my impression would be that folks would want exactly this kind of museum and archive, and not just another barber museum.
Well, we're very hopeful for that. I'm like you. I believe that to be true, and I'm looking forward to standing there and talking to members and engaging their interest in it. Obviously, it goes unsaid, but needs to be said. We need to see money because this has been an expensive proposition to carry out fully. Towards that, we will be running. We're going to call it a rally flash raffle. It's going to be a 3.5 day rally only raffle, and we have two 100-point restoration bikes that have been purchased from a very noted restorer, John Dutch Lemmers, who is a well-known member, particularly in the restoration community. He's from Ontario, Canada. And Dutch has done, this is, I think, the third or fourth bike he's done for us. Most notably is a stunning R100 RS that was gifted back to us by now one of our volunteers, Fritz Spokus. And that bike will be a centerpiece in the museum. It is stunning. But he also, for this raffle, prepared for us a 72 R75/5 and a 74 R90/6. Both are right, and everything that Dutch does is done perfectly, with 100% rebuilding of every component and so forth. So each bike is a museum piece and a show bike that anybody would be proud to have. So both of those bikes will be raffled at the rally. The proceeds we're going to use for further development of our museum.
And when you call this a rally raffle, I assume that what you mean by that is that only rally attendees will be able to acquire entries.
No.
Okay, so explain that for us.
It's going to be not only. We decided, however, that not everybody could get there, so we're going to open it, but only during the period. We're going to open it online only for the period of the rally. So
okay.
It'll go from Thursday to no later than Saturday. Probably at close of the vendor building. That will cut it off. And
it's defined by the rally temporally, but not geographically.
That is correct. So quite excited about that. We hope it does well. Again, we hope it generates some excitement amongst the membership towards the broader vision of the museum archive. One of the things, going back to the museum itself, the current building that the MOA is in is a 2-story building, and the offices are on the lower level, and we have a little bit of we have a couple bikes there already that are part of the museum, but we don't have any archive stuff set up or anything like that. We're just sitting there. The upstairs portion of that building is about 3,000 square feet, and it's completely vacant. We've not leased it yet, but it is available to us. And conceptually, we would develop further into that upper space as our first museum home. So we will be rolling out some conceptualization of that at the rally. People will be able to get a little bit of an insight what a museum archive might look like. It's nothing grand, but again, the idea is to create this journey, some sort of journey that would start from the beginning and go to the end and share the historical aspects of the club, its people, and our beloved motorcycle.
Well, that certainly does sound exciting. Anything else you wanted to cover under that heading?
It'd be premature to get too far out of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, it's a very tasty preview, and we'll look forward to the developments as they come.
Okay. Yeah.
Then I'm anxious to get back to something from our first half, which was your recent experience doing the premier training. And I wonder what you can tell us about that.
Okay. It was humbling. As a longtime rider, I certainly don't condition any discussion about my riding ability as saying I'm anything other than average. But you get bad habits, things that you forgot. It was very focused on basic things at slow speed. This was not about high speed anything. And so the day is broken down. There's a group of up to 14 individuals and four training personnel, and they break you into two groups. So they give you a little bit of taste of off pavement riding, and they take you over to the GS area, the off pavement area.
And people are supplied with motorcycles for this, as I understand it. And this is at the Greer campus that you were just mentioning.
That's right. And that's one of the best benefits of doing there. You are using their motorcycles, which is very helpful. So that for those group that's in the off pavement training section, you start out, go over there, and everything is geared towards. And you're never more than a walking pace on the bike, which is physically demanding.
Yes, yes, and I, as somebody who has done a dozen track days, and also done a lot of enduro riding and some trials riding, I can tell you, or I can agree with you, certainly I don't need to tell you, but I can agree with you. It's the slow speed stuff that will wear you out in a very short period of time.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So it's all about you, the bike, balance, slow speed control, understanding that. I don't think I ever got out of first gear. Well, one time we got out of first gear. I think they wanted you to do some emergency at the end of at the end of the half day. They focus on emergency braking with the ABS on and off in the dirt, and so you do an exercise, rear brake only from about 25 miles an hour. Then you put the Enduro Pro back on the bike. It has ABS, rear brake only, then full brake, front and rear. And it's a great exercise because it really gives you an experience. We don't go out and practice emergency braking, which we probably should do, and it gives you a good experience. So,
and it's also the kind of experience people would be more willing to undertake when it's not their bike. If you're
Well, that's right.
if you're really looking to understand the limits of the envelope, you have to accept the possibility that you're going to overstep them. I mean, you can't find the limit until you've crossed it, and crossing it with a heavily armored school bike as opposed to your own delicate, expensive machinery gives a person some, I think some greater latitude mentally to try to find where the limits really are.
Absolutely. I mean, they don't encourage you to drop the bike, but they
Sure.
understand that you will, and I did.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They're there to help you pick it right up. You go on. So that is very important. I agree with you. It's very important to the mental aspect. Most people really don't want to drop their own bike.
No.
And so they don't want to drop their bike either, but they don't feel too bad about it when when the bike goes down. So that was the off-highway portion, and they take you through some really basic exercises. Do some cones. You do some off-road enduroing. They have a little bit of an enduro track that you go through. You do a few obstacles, some washboard and some rut control, all very slow speed. It's very condensed. It's the full 2-day off-road program gets much more intense, and you get into heavy gravel, heavy sand, and all that sort of stuff, which is obviously much more challenging. You go in, you have lunch. Lunch is provided. It's all very nice. It's they have their at the performance center. It's all very first class. Just before lunch, they run you in because they're doing automotive training out there. So you can, if they're doing it, and we did, they set you in an ELM competition car with a driver, and you go out on the skid pad and you go out on the car track, and that is a big hoot.
Yeah, I bet.
It's a really big. It's a lot of fun. Of course, the M3s and M4 competition cars are just $150,000 of wonderness.
Right.
And so go in for lunch. Beautiful.
Actually, before you get any further, I think just since we are talking about hardware for a moment, is everybody on the full-size GS, or do people have the option for the F series?
You do, and thanks for bringing it up. Yeah, most folks did, but you can choose. I think you have the choice of 850, 750, full GS, or GS Adventure.
Okay.
You can do, I think there's 4 bike opportunities for the program.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Yeah, I had a regular GS. So to complete the explanation, you have a wonderful lunch, hour off, relax for a minute, and then you go back out. In my case, it was then the street portion, and in the street portion kind of mimics what you did in the off-road. It's all about slow speed, handling and maneuvering the bike, and they get you to go through trial stops. What did they call it? It was oversteer, dramatic oversteer. They do a crash avoidance scenarios, and then they do some slow speed cone weaving. And at the end, they let you run on the track a little bit, just to run around a little bit on the track for about 5 or 10 minutes, and you go back about 4:30 to complete the program. So it is a wonderful day. The professional aspect of it is top notch. Everything about it is absolutely top notch. Because it's a premier program, the MOA sponsors this. You're at the Marriott. Your dinners are provided on the program takes place on a Friday. So Thursday night and Friday night, you have dinners provided. The Thursday dinner, they shuttle you out to our campus building. This is really nice, and we have a nice outside patio area if the weather's good. So we sat outside. Catered. We have a catered dinner there. Then Friday night dinner at a local restaurant local to the hotel in Greenville.
Right. This is all a package deal.
It's a whole.
And yeah. You're catered to the entire time, as I understand it. It's not just about showing up for the training proper, but also there's a lot of time to get to know your cadre and
Exactly.
to I guess get comfortable with the trainers as well.
Yeah, it's an excellent program. It's geared towards members, member engagement. I'm glad the foundation we can provide some support for it. Members seem to love it. It virtually sells out. If I know every one of the events, we're sponsoring. I think they're conducting 12 this year, and while they're not completely sold out through the year, they will be. And historically, they have been, and with waiting, with waiting to get into the program. So.
You said 14 students,
Right.
right? And how many instructors for those 14?
There'd be 4. Excuse me. So each group would broken down into 7, breaking it in half, 7 and 7. So there'd be 2 instructors for each group. So there's 4 total. Plus there's an MOA, representative that oversees the activities. One of the things that I will be putting out in the magazine and trying to engage with members. We want volunteers, but we want certain volunteers. So I really would like to find, I don't know if this is possible. Really love to find somebody who has museum curation experience. Museum curator who would work pro bono for us would be a huge help if we could find that. So I use this as an opportunity to mention that if I'm lucky enough to find someone that listens to this, that they'd be willing to begin to help us develop a more complete curation strategy, because that's really important. You have to have a curation strategy, in my opinion. Another professional opinion, you have to have one. So
this is not. You don't want a hobbyist doing this. You want somebody who really knows what they're doing. I mean, it may seem like a rather straightforward thing we're just going to put some interesting stuff in a room, but it's obviously not that simple to do it well.
Right, exactly. We want to keep away from being a junk collector to be one of collecting, things that are of significant archival and values, and that's where you need a curation strategy and a curation person to help maneuver through that. Say, no, this is nice, but, or yes, that is significant, and yes, we really would value having that. And so also love to find I'm looking into my perfect world here. I'd love to find a grant writer. We know that there's grant money available, and we would love to be able to develop a strategic plan around grant development. That is a like museum curation. That is a specialty that requires special people that know how to maneuver through that. We tried that early, a couple years ago, and realized that we don't have the skill sets to do that.
Right. It is a very specialized. Yeah, it's a specialized endeavor. Yeah.
Right. And then finally, I'm certainly looking for people to augment our fundraising effort. We have a standing committee, subcommittee on fundraising, and folks who have fundraising experience and are understanding how that process goes. It's fundraising is a process of relationships, and creating touch points and getting engagement with folks. It takes effort. So we're looking for folks that can do that, and as well as some potential marketing folks. So volunteers are very important to all organizations, and developing a strong volunteer cadre. Again, we're trying to focus on what our strategic needs are. Not that every volunteer is not helpful, but it is important to find those volunteers that can add the most value, into the organization. So,
yeah, well, it makes perfect sense for us to get the word out for these specific areas of expertise.
So I thought I'd use this soapbox for a moment.
Yeah.
Ask for your help. I'm very appreciative of this opportunity to. Maybe I pontificated a little bit too much here, but I appreciate the opportunity to speak and share more in depth the strategies and philosophies of the current foundation. I would certainly be remiss if I didn't add that I'm as president very blessed to be supported by a terrific group of volunteer board members who have the same passion and adopt a common vision. It makes it very worthwhile, and it's exciting to be able to articulate these things, knowing that I have eight other people that stand beside me, not behind me, but beside me, and support what I'm talking about. Equally important is the fact that we are mutually aligned with the BMW staff management and the board of directors, who are right beside us and in supporting each other, understanding the significant relationship. While we're distinct organizations and we maintain business and arm's length financial and professional arrangements, we are strategically aligned, and we could not do what we do without the support of the MOA board of directors and the members, obviously. So it's very gratifying for me, in this position, to have all that support. And it allows us to, to create this future that I'm very excited about, quite honestly. So,
yeah, well, again, highlighting the human side of all of this makes perfect sense, given that's why the organization exists to begin with, both the MOA and the foundation. Well, it's been great having this kind of conversation so that we really get to know one of the people that we see in the magazine, with the foundation column, and you really fleshed out stuff that people may have known bits and pieces of, and whether they get it from the magazine or if people go to the MOA website, and there's actually a tab for the foundation, and under that tab you can see in a even greater detail a lot of what we've been discussing today. So I hope that this prompts members and non-members alike to be curious and to investigate more about what the foundation is doing and what it has to offer both members and non-members of the MOA. Thank you very much, Tom. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
We'd love to answer your questions too, so send them to podcast@bmwmoa.org. Visit our website at therideinside.com to listen to every episode of the podcast and read more of Mark's writing on various motorcycle-related topics. The best way to support The Ride Inside is by joining the BMW Motorcycle Owners of America. Yes, it says BMW right in the name, but we absolutely do not care what bike you ride. We know what's most important. The MOA is all about the community of riders, not a single brand. You can join as a digital member for $39 a year, or as a traditional member for $49 a year. The biggest difference is digital members don't get a hard copy of the monthly magazine in their mailbox. They access the BMW Owners News online. Each membership supports digital offerings like The Ride Inside, as well as everything else the MOA does. Find out more at bmwmoa.org. Ride along with us on the internet. The MOA and all its digital productions are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We'll see you out there somewhere on the road, or off it, ride safe.